that I have placed it. The learned Solicitor General, my lords, who appears for Oriental Insurance Company, has also filed his written submissions, my lords, as far as these two matters are concerned. I'm not sure about the others, my lords, that I have placed it. All there are 76 matters before your lordships on board. So the lead matter is mine. The learned solicitors is Oriental Insurance Company's matter, my lords. And he's on screen, and Mr. Bhushan is there, and I think Mr. Kaul is for an intervener.
Let the lead matter start, man. I have no.
So we, all right. So we'll, Mr. Dave, you are in the lead matter, right? So you can start there.
I had appeared, my lord, in the reference by 2 to 3 and by 3 to 5. I am in 502.44, 45 and 46. I had appeared at the stage when it was referred by 2, doubting Mukul Devangan. And then at the stage of 3, doubting Mukul Devangan again and referring to 5. Whichever way your lordship wants, so we can.
So we can start, should we start with the first matter? We'll start with the first matter and then hear them here in C, written whoever is.
May I request your lordships to take the written submissions? The issue is quite a narrow one, my lords.
Parajan Sabar.
What is before your lordships, my lords, while your lordships are locating, is a reference of a 3-judge bench, my lords.
So should we go first to your submissions?
Yeah,
or?
it will be convenient, my lords, for your lordships, my lords. Just page 3 of my submissions, if your lordships have. It has a reference timeline for convenience purposes, my lords.
What do you want us to do?
My written submissions at page 3, my lords. I've set out the issue, my lords, in para 1.1. I filed a comprehensive written submission. It has all the judgments in it, the reference orders, and even the earlier 2-judge bench orders which were doubted in the first round itself. If it comes to it, my lords, they are all before your lordship.
You are referring to the final written submissions.
Yes, my lord.
That's what it says.
Parajan Sabar.
886 page.
Yes, no, that is.
Is it 886? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I put the Motor Vehicles Act also now since before your digital, lordships, my lords, while so, your and the lordships rules are as well locating, on is a reference of a 3-judge bench, my lords.
Broad written submission.
So should we go first to your submissions?
Yeah,
or?
it will be convenient. Yes, for your lordship. There is an index, my lord. Just page 3 of my submissions, if your lordship's index divides into, it has a reference timeline for convenience purposes.
Violation of judgment.
What do you want
Yes.
us to do?
My written submissions at page 3.
Motor Vehicles Act.
Yes, my lords. My
Right.
two colleagues from my office, my lords, who are more adept at this than I am. And I'm grateful to them for doing this, my lords. But I've set out the issue that is there before your lordships, and it's in a narrow compass. I've set out the issue that a person in para 1 holding a driving license in respect of a light motor vehicle could, on the strength of the said license, be entitled to drive a transport vehicle of light motor vehicle class, which has an unladen comprehensive written submission. It has all the judgments in it, the reference orders, and even the earlier 2-judge bench orders which were doubted in the first round itself. If it comes to it, my lords, they are all before your lordship.
You are referring to the
para
final written
1.2.
submissions.
Yes, my lord.
That's what it says.
Parajan Sabar.
Lordships may just see the
886
reference timeline. Yes, no, that which is tabulated in the form
Yeah.
of. Because I put the Motor Vehicles Act also as a reference and the rules as well on is a reference of a 3-judge bench. Mukul Devangan, which noticed the conflicting views in 8 judgments of this honorable court and referred inter alia.
So should we go first to your submissions?
Yes,
or?
it will be convenient. Yes, for your lordship. There is an index, just page 3 to a bench of 3 honorable judges. In 2017, my lords, the reference was answered and the judgment in Mukund Devangan was delivered by 3 honorable judges, my lords, which answered the reference concluding that the holder of a license of a light motor vehicle is competent to drive a transport vehicle not exceeding 7,500 kilograms without a separate endorsement on the license to drive a transport vehicle. This 3-judge bench, my lords, was again doubted by 2 honorable judges, my lords, in 2018. which noted that the submissions of the council that the judgment in Mukund Devangan did not consider significant provisions of the Motor Vehicles Act. Accordingly, the bench directed that the matter be placed before a bench of 3 honorable judges of this honorable court. Then comes the reference, my lords, in 2022 to your lordships, my lords, which is on 8/3/2022, which concluded that the judgment in Mukund Devangan did not notice certain provisions of the Motor Vehicle Act requiring the judgment to be reconsidered, and the bench was pleased to opine that being a combination of 3 judges, it was appropriate to refer the matter to a larger bench. Accordingly, the present matter has been placed before the Constituent. Because I may request your lordships, my lords, before I go to Mukund Devangan, what it holds, my lords, can I just show for convenience sake what your lordships were pleased to refer, my lords, by 2 honorable judges in 2018. Because after all, it's a judgment of 3 honorable judges. Ordinarily, it is binding on 2 honorable judges. So that your lordships will get.
There is 2016 for SCC 298, right?
This is 2018, my lords. 2000. No, this is the reference I'm referring to. This is page 110, my lords. If your lordships are pleased to turn to page 110.
PDF?
100 and PDF is the same.
Yeah.
It starts at 104. Oh, sorry, 110. Sorry. No, 1 second. I'm going to the.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Milaj, I'm going to the 2 judges. Sorry for the confusion. So after Mukund Devangan was delivered, my lords, your lordships at 104 and 106 sitting in a combination of this honorable, sitting in combination of 2 my lords at 106, were pleased to hold this at 106. Whether a person licensed to drive a light motor vehicle is ipso facto entitled to drive a transport vehicle in that category is the question to be considered in these cases. We find that the issue has been considered by this court by a bench of 3 judges in Mukund Devangan, reported in 2017 for SCC 663. The conclusions in Mukund Devangan are summarized by the court and reads as follows, para 60. Thus, we answer the question which are referred to us thus. 60.1, light motor vehicle as defined in section 221 of the Act would include a transport vehicle as per the weight prescribed in section 221, read with section 215 and 248. Such transport vehicles are not excluded from the definition of light motor vehicle by virtue of the Amendment Act 54 of 1994. A transport vehicle and omnibus, the gross vehicle weight of either of which does not exceed 7,500 kilograms, would be a light motor vehicle and also a motor car or tractor or a road roller, unladen weight of which does not exceed 7,500 kgs and holder of a driving license to drive class of light motor vehicles as provided in section 10(2)(d) is competent to drive a transport vehicle or omnibus, the gross vehicle weight of which does not exceed 7,500 kgs, or a motor car or tractor or road roller, the unladen weight of which does not exceed 7,500 kgs. That is to say, no separate endorsement on the license is required to drive a transport vehicle of light motor vehicle class as enumerated above. A license issued under section 10(2)(d) continues to be valid after amendment of 1994 and 28/3/2001 in the form. The effect of the amendment made by virtue of section 54 of 1994 with effect from 14/11/1994 while substituting clauses E to H of section 10(2) which contain medium goods vehicle in section 10(2)(e), medium passengers motor vehicle in section 10(2)(f), heavy goods vehicle in 10(2)(g), and heavy passengers motor vehicle in section 10(2)(h) with expression transport vehicle as substituted in section 10(2)(e) related only to the aforesaid substituted classes only. It does not exclude transport vehicles from the purview of section 10(2)(d) and section 241 of the Act, light motor vehicle. The effect of amendment of Form 4 by insertion of transport vehicle is related only to the categories which were substituted in the year 1994, and the procedure to obtain driving license for transport vehicle of class of light motor vehicle continues to be the same as it was and has not been changed, and there is no requirement to obtain separate endorsement to drive transport vehicle And if a driver is holding license to drive light motor vehicle, he can drive transport vehicle of such class without any endorsement to that effect. That is what your lordships held in 3 judges. Then the 2 honorable judges were pleased to hold that it is the submission of Mr. Bhushan and Joy Basu, learned counsel, that the certain distinct provisions pertaining specifically to transport vehicle have unfortunately not been brought to the notice of the court. Section 4(1) of the Motor Vehicles Act, hereinafter referred to as Act, provides that the minimum age of holding a driving license for a motor vehicle is 18 years. Section 4(2) provides that no person under the age of 20 years shall drive a transport vehicle in a public place. Section 7 provides that no person can be granted a learner's license to drive a transport vehicle unless he has held a driving license to drive a light motor vehicle for at least 1 year. Section 14 deals with the currency of license of driving motor vehicles. A driving license issued or renewed under this Act, in case a license to drive a transport vehicle will be effective for a period of 3 years, the provisor to Section 14(2), sorry.
Yes.
I was reading para 3. Section 14 deals with the currency of license to drive motor vehicles. A driving license issued or renewed under this Act, in case a license to drive a transport vehicle will be effective for a period of 3 years. The provisor to Section 14(2)(a) provides that in case of a license to drive a transport vehicles which come in the light motor vehicle category. While the councils have referred to various other provisions of this Act and the rules, we have only referred to a few very significant submissions. Since the prayer is for reconsideration of Mukund Devangan, we are of the view that it is only appropriate that the prayer itself, in the light of some submissions we have noted, be considered by a larger which is dated 8/3/2022. To which my Lord Justice Narasimha was a party, my lords, at page 113. This also culls out, my lords, and quotes in para 2 the judgment of Mukund Devangan. I'm not reading that, my lords, since I've already read it. And thereafter, my lords, at page 115, your lordships were pleased to quote the judgment I have already, the order that I read, my lords. And then page paragraph 3, 4 are also what has already been noted by your lordships, my lords. And then paragraph 5 is the reference order at page 116, my lords. Having bestowed our attention to the contentions raised by the learned counsel and the issues which fall for consideration, in our view, the referral order was right in stating that certain provisions were not noticed by this court in its decision in Mukund Devangan. We are prima facie of the view that in terms of the referral order, the controversy in question needs to be revisited. Sitting in a combination of 3, we deem it appropriate to refer the matter to a larger bench of more than 3 judges, as the Honorable the Chief Justice of India may deem appropriate, and therefore the matter comes now, my lords. There's one part, my lords, para 7, I would like to read for your lordships, my lords, because that depends on individual facts. What your lordships in a combination of 3 were pleased to hold. Para 7. Before we part, we must note that all the learned counsels appearing for the insurance company have fairly submitted that the compensation in terms of the directions issued by the courts below, that is to say, in following the principles laid down in Mukund Devangan, has either been paid in full or shall be paid in terms of such direction. Their statements are recorded. So as far as individual cases and compensations were concerned, my lords, we were told to comply with that.
Just 1 minute.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
with us. Yes.
Sorry.
Getting three, I think we get three. Very fun. Yes.
Sorry. If your lordships are pleased to now turn to just page 4 of my written submissions, I have provided for an easier understanding a chart or a diagram rather than a chart. my lords.
Yes.
Page 4. my lord.
All of you contend that license is necessary.
License is necessary.
Who is the other side who's going to say it's not necessary? Who are appearing?
We, we are for the claimant, because Malasha, whatever be the consequences, it will be on the claimant with respect to the entitlement of compensation from whom? Because the whole intention was to actually safeguard the claimants, poor claimants across the country, my lord. So
So
if
you are
the
you are
insurance-
supporting Mukund Devangan basically.
Yes, my lord, yes. We are supporting Mukund Devangan because Malasha, like the pay and recovery has to be ordered.
All right.
Because there is no breach of policy condition, all the submission.
Yes, yes. So there are somebody is in contest that we require
my
some
lord,
assistance
please.
on this side. Yes. Yes.
So my lords, page 4.
They can review if they have to.
Supporting your.
Yes, solicitor is appearing for Oriental Insurance Company. Oriental Insurance. He's
Insurance company.
Then who is for the union? So I don't understand.
because it arises out of an insurance claim.
Conflict of conflict. He is somebody representing the.
Union is not a party, my lord.
That is.
Since it's a pure insurance claim.
Yeah.
Across the country.
Right.
Lordship, please. At page 4, my lords. No, the imbalance, my lord, that's why your lordships were pleased to direct us to pay.
We'll balance it.
So,
So your contention is the fact that you have a license to drive a light motor vehicle
yes,
does not entitle the person to drive a transport vehicle, albeit in the light motor vehicle class.
absolutely. That short is.
There are two different classifications. Rules deal with both separately.
Yes. And why I'm asking you lordships to come to the chart is because what Mukund Devangan did was,
As a specific section, it says that you will drive a class of vehicle which your license authorizes you to. But if you want to drive a transport vehicle, your license must specifically say.
Oh, I see.
The whole scheme is like this.
So it's not this is not a case of silence of the statute, but
Specifically certain.
yes.
so if your lordship says page 4, it defines light motor vehicle. And this is the problem why it comes, my lords. And which I'll refer to as LMV since everywhere it is referred to as LMV. Light motor vehicle, which is defined under 221, means a transport vehicle. And then I've given the definition of transport vehicle in red, my lords, which is under 247. It means public services vehicle, goods carriage, educational institution, bus, private service vehicle, or an omnibus, which is defined under 229, which means any motor vehicle constructed, adapted to carry more than 6 persons, excluding the driver, the gross weight of which, my lords, and the gross weight is total weight is defined under 215, or means a motor car, my lords, which is defined under 226, tractor, road roller, and then comes the unladen weight of which does not exceed 7,500 kilograms. So the definition of an LMV, my lords, is a transport vehicle, omnibus, the gross vehicle weight of which, or motor car, tractor, road roller, unladen which weight of which does not exceed 7,500.
So light motor vehicle could also be a transport vehicle.
Yes, it could be. It could be.
Yes.
It could be.
That's the point.
It could be even a road roller.
Right.
Usage.
Then, my lords, this 10.2 I have set out in part. 10.2 provides for the classes of vehicle which we are concerned with. I have set out. Transport vehicle is a separate category, and light motor vehicle. In the asterisk, my lords, I have mentioned that it also covers other classes of vehicles such as motorcycle without gear, motorcycle with gear, adapted vehicle, road roller, motor vehicle of a specified description, which your lordships are not concerned with. What in brief Mukund Devangan says is, my lords, that since what fell from your lordships, transport vehicle entitles you to drive, an LMV includes a transport vehicle, if it is 7,500 kilograms, and you have a driving license to drive a light motor vehicle, you do not require any other endorsement in your license or any special permission.
Because it proceeds on the basis that the statutory definition
Yes.
includes a transport vehicle in the definition of light motor vehicle.
Now, what Mr. Bhushan, what he pointed out, my lords, if your lordships, if it's bookmarked, I've set out the act, or if your lordships have the bare act separately, at page 315 of the compilation. Otherwise, if it's more convenient, then
That's okay. We got the act as well.
yes, I put
Mera
315.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I put the act itself, my lords.
Chetan, आज हम सारी
Sorry, my lords,
But now that you've given us the page, we
Always
have
getting bookmarked.
sorry, that's mine. 315, it starts at.
So, Mr. Dave, your iPad now is in general for your practice, or is it only in the Constitution bench?
Not on miscellaneous days, because rushing in a court and just grabbing something, the file when it comes to turn quickly, I'm still getting used to it. Though Ms. Pathak has been kind enough to give me some tutorials as to how even that can be done
This will
quickly.
be faster even
Much
than the
faster.
Senate day.
I know, Manoj. I'm gravitating towards it now.
One brief in hand for all the courts,
Yes, that is true.
even better.
She was saying, my learned friend was mentioning that no clerk, no juniors, just you yourself are like the old Bombay lawyers. I believe carry your own file. Manoj.
Yes.
Well, it's 315 if your lordships have. And before I take your lordships to the definition in, again, there is one section which is section 3. And much turns on this section 3 at 319, my lords.
Mr. Bhushan, you don't have your iPad? Yes.
But he also has a book.
The book I got because I was finding it hard to find the amended.
The amended version.
The net. So it was difficult to, because this was amended in 2019 and all the India code, etc., all have to be in 2016.
Well, the rule should be whichever senior doesn't use an iPad, it will dock him like a penalty in cricket or in tennis, 50% of his fee. Well, that's 319. Section 3. Now, this, according to us, my lords, is the most important section, which ought to have been, it is noticed in Mukund Devangan, but not dealt with in our respectful submission. Now, please see this. This deals specifically with the necessity for driving license. And it reads, my lords, if your lordship permits me. Necessity for driving license. No person shall drive a motor vehicle in any public place unless he holds an effective driving license issued to him authorizing him to drive the vehicle. And there's a semicolon. So you can have no person shall drive a motor vehicle in any public place unless he holds an effective driving license issued to him authorizing to. And no person shall so drive a transport vehicle, I'm skipping the bracketed part, my lords, for the time being, shall so drive a transport vehicle unless his driving license specifically entitles him to do so. The bracketed part are, my lords, which are by way of amendment, other than a motor car, cab or motorcycle hired for his own use or rented under any scheme made under subsection 2 of section 75. These includes, my lords, when we travel to Goa and all, we rent a car or something for our purposes. So that includes this part. But otherwise, after the semicolon, my lords, and no person shall so drive a transport vehicle unless his driving license specifically entitles him to do so. So one, you require a general license to drive, hold an effective driving license issued to him, authorizing him to drive, which is the first part, my lords. And the second part is specific to a transport vehicle. And his license, driving license, has to specifically entitle him to do so. As I said, my lords, this part has not been dealt with in Mukund Devangan. And it is our contention that if were you to drive in the scheme of the Motor Vehicles Act and the sections that have been referred to by your lordships in the referral order, transport vehicle falls under a separate category altogether. And that becomes clearer if your lordship then goes to the next section, which is section 4. Age limit in connection with driving of motor vehicles. No person under the age of 18 years shall drive a motor vehicle in any public place. So it is further qualifying what is said in section 3, my lords, that no person shall drive. So that person has to be above 18 as per in regard to as per section 4. Yeah, I'm coming to. I'll read the whole, my lords. I'm not skipping any part. Provided that a motorcycle with engine capacity not exceeding 50 cc may be driven in a public place by a person after attaining 16. 2. Subject to provisions of section 18, no person under the age of 20 years shall drive a transport vehicle in any public place. So there is one qualification which is in 3. Then comes a further qualification in 4. So 18 for vehicles generally, but if it is a transport vehicle, it requires the person to be 20 years of age to drive a transport vehicle in a public place. So that distinction comes once again, my lords. between a motor vehicle holding an effective license and then a transport vehicle. So you have to be 20 years of age. Now, 5 is responsibility of the owners, my lord. No person shall be in charge of a cause permit to drive, my lords. And then it comes, my lords, to 7, my lords, if your lordships has. Restriction on the granting of learner's license for certain vehicles. No person shall be granted a learner's license to drive a transport vehicle unless he has held a driving license to drive a light motor vehicle for at least 1 year. But straight away a distinction is drawn by the legislature. So if everyone requires a learner's license, so no person shall be granted a learner's license to drive a transport vehicle unless he has held a driving license to drive a light motor vehicle for at least 1 year, provided that nothing contained in subsection 1 shall apply to e-cart, e-rickshaw. No person under the age of 18 years shall be granted a learner's license to drive a motorcycle without gear except with the consent of the parent. So first distinction is in 3, my lords. The second part of 3 specifically entitling him to do so. Second comes in the age limit of 20 years. Third is in the learner's license that you already require to hold a light motor vehicle license for 1 year before you can be granted a learner's license to drive a transport vehicle. Now, my lords, 8 is grant of learner's license. Any person who is not disqualified under section 4 I read to your lordships, my lords, dealt with the age limit. Any person who is not disqualified under 4 for driving a motor vehicle and who is not for the time being disqualified for holding or obtaining a driving license may, subject to the provisions of section 7, apply to any of the licensing authority of the state. One in which he ordinarily resides or carries on business, in which the school establishment referred to 12 where he intends to receive instructions, or for the issue of learner's license. Every application under subsection 1 shall be in the form and shall be accompanied by documents which with the fee including may be prescribed. Every application to drive a transport vehicle, that is subsection 3, my lords, under subsection 1 shall be accompanied by a medical certificate in such form as may be prescribed by the central government and signed by such registered medical practitioner as the state government or any person authorized in this behalf by the state government may by notification in the official gazette appoint for this purpose. So, my lords, even for a learner's license, apart from him holding a license for 1 year, a learner's license for 1 year to drive a light motor vehicle, further has to provide, my lords, that is a medical certificate in the form that has been prescribed by the central government and signed by a registered medical practitioner. Now, my lords, 5 says, no learner's license shall be issued to any applicant unless he satisfies such conditions as may be prescribed by the central government. Will come to the rules, my lords.
Subsection 4 applies only to subsection 3, is it?
Yes, my lords. Sorry, I skipped that, my lords. If from the application or from medical certificate referred to in subsection 3, it appears that the applicant is suffering from any disease or disability which is likely to cause the driving by him of a motor vehicle or such of the class which he would authorize by the learner's license applied for to drive to a source of danger to the public or the passenger, the licensing authority shall refuse to issue the learner's license. Yes, no. So this is on learner's license, my lords. Then your lordships may have (9)(4), my lords, again draws a distinction. Where there's grant of driving license, any person who is not for the time being disqualified for holding or obtaining driving license may apply to. And 4, where the application is for a license to drive a transport vehicle, no such authorization shall be granted to any applicant unless he possesses a driving certificate issued by a school or establishment referred to in section 12. Other things, my lords, about the habitual criminal, etc., we are not concerned with. Then comes 10. Now, 10 is where your lordship's judgment in Mukund Devangan interpreted that if you have for light motor vehicle, then transport vehicle is a separate category. You can drive a transport vehicle if you hold a license for light motor vehicle. Now, form and contents of license to drive. Every learner's license and driving license, except a driving license issued under section 18, shall be in such form and shall contain such information as may be prescribed by the central government. A learner's license, or as the case may be driving license, shall also be expressed as entitling the holder to drive a motor vehicle of one or more of the following classes, namely a motor vehicle without gear, a motorcycle with gear, adapted vehicle, D is light motor vehicle, and E is transport vehicle, F is road roller, and J is motor vehicle of a specified description. This earlier had other 4 other classes, my lords, which were amended in 1994. And in their place, this transport vehicle came and light motor vehicle existed, but all other categories after that were now have been subsumed in transport vehicle. So Mukund Devangan, my lords, your lordships interpreted that since light motor vehicle is by a class, the definition of light motor vehicle includes a transport vehicle. Up to 7,500, you don't require a separate endorsement to drive a transport vehicle. But what you didn't notice, my lords, I'll go to the other sections also, since we are on going seriatim, my lords. 10 is this part. Now your lordships may
There is
kindly.
not a section which authorizes or the one which grants the license.
No, this is only
10
the
is
form.
actually speaking about what should the license contain
Yes,
as the ingredients,
yeah,
as against the grant which falls under 9.
yes. ma'am. The
10(2) of course says
says
that
that,
if you have a driving license,
yes, my lords.
it will entitle you to drive a motor vehicle of one or more of the following classes,
It does. Yes.
isn't it? So that will mean that if your driving license would entitle you to drive a light motor vehicle
Yes, ma'am.
and a
Transport
transport vehicle
or a road roller.
or a road roller.
It would entitle. So our argument was that since here transport vehicle is separately mentioned, road roller is mentioned, a light motor vehicle does not necessarily authorize you to drive a transport vehicle, the unladen weight of which may be less than 7,500 kilograms, which is the definition. But your lordships in Mukund Devangan were pleased to hold that since it is mentioned there, that transport vehicle and an amendment specifically was brought in 1994, and a separate class of transport vehicle was created which subsumed the 4 other classes in it, and light motor vehicle. So if you're driving a light motor vehicle of up to 7,500 kilograms, you don't require a separate endorsement of any kind to drive a transport vehicle. So all the provisions that I have read up till 10, which deal with a separate license regime for a transport vehicle, are inapplicable if your lordship's decision or are pleased to uphold Mukund Devangan, then all these will be inapplicable to a person driving a transport vehicle of up to
less than
7,500 kilograms. That would be the sequitur of if that judgment is upheld. So then we would be carving out a distinction, my lords, in the legislative scheme of transport vehicles which are light motor vehicles up to 7,500 kilograms, not requiring any of those other tests to be fulfilled, and transport vehicles of above 7,500 kilograms, which require these to be fulfilled by a person who is desirous of driving a transport vehicle. Though the legislature makes no such difference, but on that. So the two two sections which your lordships were pleased to use in the decision were 247 for the definition of motor vehicle and 10(2) as far as the form and content of driving license was concerned. It doesn't end there. It goes a little further. And 14 becomes of some relevance, my lords, if your lordships are pleased to turn to 14.
Says that
Just
11 is
reading 11
important.
actually.
Yes,
yeah.
11.
Clarifies the context, huh? 11 is missed out. in
Additions to
general
driving
segment.
license, yes.
Very correct.
Any person holding a driving license to drive any class or description of motor vehicle who is not for the time being disqualified from holding or obtaining a driving license to drive any other class or description of motor vehicle may apply to the licensing authority in the state in which he resides or carries on his business in such form and accompanied by such documents and with such fee as may be prescribed by the central government for the addition of such other class or description of motor vehicles to the license. So you apply, if I hold an LMV, I want to drive a road roller, I will apply for that purpose. Subject to such rules as may be prescribed by the central government, the provisions of section 9 shall apply to an application under this section as if the said application were for the grant of a license under that section to drive the class or description of motor vehicles which the applicant desires to be added to his license, provided that the licensing authority may, before issuing the license, verify the identity of the applicant in such a manner. Now, please see 14, which is the currency of license to drive motor vehicle. (14) is currency. A learner's license issued under this Act shall, subject to the other provisions of this Act, be effective for a period of 6 months from the date of the issue of the license. 2. A driving license issued or renewed under this Act shall, now please see this, my lords, A, in the case of a license to drive a transport vehicle, be effective for a period of 5 years, provided that in the case of license to drive a transport vehicle carrying goods of dangerous or hazardous nature, be effective for a period of 3 years, and renewal thereof shall be subject to such conditions as the central government may prescribe. So even within the transport vehicle, my lords, it is effective, the license is valid for 5 years, and if it is for hazardous nature, goods or dangerous, then it is 3 years, and the renewal shall be subject to the conditions of the central government. In the case of any other license, subject to such conditions as the central government may prescribe, if the person obtaining the license either originally or on renewal thereof, now it goes by age, my lords. 1. Has not attained the age of 30 years on the date of issue or renewal thereof, be effective until the date on which such person attains the age of 40 years, which means, my lords, if I have applied at age 20, I can have a license validity for 20 years till the age I am 40 years. Has attained the age of 30 years, but has not attained the age of 50 on the date of issue, renewal thereof, be effective for a period of 10 years from the date of issue of such renewal. Has attained the age of 50 years, but has not attained the age of 55 years on the date of issue of renewal thereof, be effective until the date on which such person attains the age of 60 years, and has attained the age of 55 years on the date of issue, or as the case may be, the renewal thereof be effective for a period of 5 years from the date of such issue or renewal. So for any other category, my lords, I have to attain a 55 years, wherein I would then get a license for 5 years and subsequently then for 5 years. For other, I can get 20, 10, that is how it proceeds. But if it is a transport vehicle, you will get it only for a period of 5 years.
Was not just with Mukund Devangan.
Then comes section 15, which is renewal of driving licenses. And it says, my lords, it's at the bottom of page 324. Any licensing authority may, on application made to it, renew a sorry.
Castrol.
Any licensing authority may, on application made to it, renew a driving license issued under the provisions of the Act with effect from the date of its expiry, provided that in any case where the application is for renewal of a license is made either 1 year prior to the date of its expiry or within 1 year after the date of its expiry, the driving license shall be renewed with effect from the date of its renewal. The second proviso, my lord, sorry. Provided further that where the application is for the renewal of a license to drive a transport vehicle, or where in another case the applicant has attained the age of 40 years, the same shall be accompanied by a medical certificate in the same form and in the same manner as is referred to in subsection 3 of section 8, and the provisions of subsection 4 of section 8 shall, so far as may be, apply in relation to every such case as they apply in relation to
So
it.
the requirements are also different. You require medical certificate specifically for a transport vehicle.
Yes.
Including for a renewal.
Including for renewal for all of every time for a transport vehicle, in general category, in LMV, only if you have attained the age of 40 years.
Where do you get that, where you have attained the age of 40 years? For
Yes, the proviso, my lords, your lordship has the proviso.
The second proviso, yes.
The second proviso, provided further that the
Has attained the age of 40 years.
Yes.
Sorry, I missed that.
in other case, the applicant.
In any other case. That's right. Yeah.
Then comes the power to make rules, my lords, which is at page 332.
No, fax method is probably नहीं है क्योंकि we have already.
This doesn't specifically relate to the issuance, my lords, but it relates to the state government framing rules where transport vehicles are in different, page 332. That a state government may make rules for the purpose of carrying into effect the provisions of this chapter other than the matters specified in section 27. And then D, the badges and uniform to be worn by drivers of transport vehicles and the fee to be paid in respect of badges. The duties, functions, H, my lords, then the duties, functions and conduct of such persons to whom license to drive transport vehicles are issued. Then the last ones is subject to Mr. Bhushan and Mr. Kaul and the learned ASG. If they have some other sections I may have missed, my lords, is 66, which is chapter 5 at page 351.
41 also.
says control of transport vehicles, my lords. 66, necessity for permits. No owner of a motor vehicle shall use, sorry.
Yes.
Reading 66, Mr. Dana.
66, my lords, at page 351. No owner of a motor vehicle shall use or permit the use of the vehicle as a transport vehicle in any public place, whether or not such vehicle is actually carrying any passengers or goods, save in accordance with the conditions of permit granted or countersigned by regional or state transport authority, or as prescribed, or any prescribed authority authorizing him the use of the vehicle in that place in the manner in which the vehicle is being used. Now, this of course applies to the owner, doesn't apply to the driver, can be a non-owner as well. But the endeavor here, my lords, is that according to us, a transport vehicle falls in an entirely different category than a light motor vehicle, even though it finds within the meaning and the definition. Now, these are, and there are some rules, my lords, that are there, which dealt with that. I may just briefly indicate, my lords, to your lordships, if your lordships would like to go through. It's Rule 5 deals with that medical.
Mr. Call, any other provision that may have been missed, do you want us to read so that at this point we can complete the reading of the Act?
Yes.
That these are the Act. Fair enough. Since Mr. Dave said
Yes.
subject to,
Because this,
which one? We just look at 210, Mr.
Oh, definitions.
Yeah,
there are
definition we saw from the written.
quite a few, there are quite a few in definitions which we have to see.
Mr. Dave, should we just look at of course, we saw the definition in your flow chart.
yes, ma'am.
Let's have a look at it as it reads, so
Lordship.
that,
So your lordships may come to page 308, where I've set out. Sorry, it's not bookmarked.
driving license, right?
Yes, my lords. Motor vehicle starts with 315, my lords. The definition.
Driving license is 210.
Yes, my lords.
Just to make it complete, let's see the definitions all at one go.
Yes, my lords. Driving license means the license issued by a competent authority under Chapter 2, authorizing the person specified therein to drive otherwise than a learner a motor vehicle or a motor vehicle of any specified class or description. Because a learner license is known as a learner's license. So the driving license is a license issued by competent authority, authorizing the person specified therein to drive a motor vehicle or a motor vehicle of any specified description.
Class or description?
Class or description, I'm obliged, my lords. Class or
What is a class and what is a description? What's the difference?
my lords, class may be like the class that is there, which is specified in.
In 10, there is
10.
a, in
It
10,
could be.
10 talks of a
Yes.
class.
Description will come, my lords, where if it is a motor vehicle or it is a transport vehicle, there are various other descriptive classes of vehicles that are provided for, which I'll take your lordships to. There are vehicles especially for educational institute. There is a vehicle which is for private use, which is for a public carriage, or it is for goods vehicle. So various descriptive
Usage.
usage it describes them as for the purpose they are the vehicle, because the definition of a motor vehicle is also provided under this act.
Then we had section 221, which was a light motor vehicle.
Yes, my lords. Now light motor vehicle means a transport vehicle or omnibus, the gross vehicle weight of either of which, or a motor car or tractor or road roller, the unladen weight of which does not exceed 7,500 kilograms. Now, according to my reading, my lord, subject to any correction, there is no heavy motor vehicle and there is no medium motor vehicle. Then it goes by, as your lordships would see, below this at 223, it becomes a medium goods vehicle or a medium passenger motor vehicle. this light motor vehicle, my lords, is a description or a definition which exists only for this particular, in this manner amongst the definitions.
This definition itself doesn't indicate that the moment you have a license for a light motor vehicle,
No.
that you can, as a matter of right, you would be entitled to drive a transport vehicle or an, yes.
It does not.
This merely says that a transport vehicle or omnibus vehicle whose gross weight is less than 7,500 and a motor car or a tractor or road roller, the unladen of which, weight of which is less than 7,500 is a light motor vehicle.
I'm obliged.
Correct. Not.
Right. Okay.
Transport vehicle, because usage and weight are different. Weightage is not the basis. Usage is the basis, and the judgment falls into that error, relying on section 2, subclause 21, read with section 10, and commits this error.
Right.
The Act draws a distinction between the utility of a vehicle on the
Great.
other hand and the vehicle in itself on the other hand.
Grateful.
So that distinction, I think, is
Yes,
effective in the judgment.
yes.
Because there are different types of usages of the vehicle, and the statute speaks about such usages in different
And
terms.
that's why, my lords, the license regime entirely is utility and usage
Parallelly
based.
runs through.
It has nothing to do with the weight at all.
Why I was pointing out, my lord, since your lordships are on description, if your lordship just scroll up one page, your lordship will find heavy goods vehicle.
Yes, yes.
Where it would be heavy goods vehicle means any goods carriage, the gross vehicle weight of which, or a tractor or road roller, the unladen weight of which exceeds 12,000 kilo.
Even the next one, 17.
17, I'm obliged.
17 also.
17. Heavy passenger motor vehicle means any heavy passenger motor vehicle, it specifies, means any public service vehicle or private service vehicle or educational institution bus or omnibus, the gross vehicle weight of which, or the motor car, the unladen weight of which exceeds 12,000 kilograms. Now, since we are at it, my lords, and therefore we have the light motor, we have the heavy. Now, please see medium also, which is 23 and 24. At page 317 itself, my lords. Medium goods vehicle means any goods carriage other than a light motor vehicle or a heavy goods vehicle. 24, medium passenger motor vehicle means any public service vehicle, private service vehicle, educational institution bus, other than a motorcycle, light motor vehicle, or heavy passenger motor vehicle. So you have a medium goods vehicle, which is between the two. You have a light, which is 7,500, heavy, which is above 7,000, over 12,000 kilograms, and then you have medium. I wanted to read the definition, my lords, of motor vehicle. Since we are reading the Motor Vehicles Act, my lords, what is a motor vehicle at 28, scientifically defined? Motor vehicle or vehicle means any mechanically propelled vehicle adapted for use upon roads, whether the power of propulsion is transmitted thereto from an external or internal source, and includes a chassis to which a body has not been attached, or a trailer, but does not include a vehicle running upon fixed rails, or a vehicle of a special type adapted for use only in a factory or in any other enclosed premises, or a vehicle having less than 4 wheels fitted with engine capacity of not exceeding 25 cubic centimeters.
26 is also important.
26 meters. Motor car, yes. That's motor car means any motor vehicle
Other than a
transport
transport
vehicle. I'm
vehicle.
obliged. Omnibus, road roller, tractor, motorcycle. As far as a
So it
motor
draws
car
out
is
the
concerned,
distinction between a motor car.
as far as a motor car is concerned, with that, even omnibus is there. And then, my lords, kindly come to no transport vehicle. Let's first place 247. While your lordships are at page 317, just in correlation, 31 defines permit, which means a permit issued by state regional transport.
Permit we have seen.
Permit, yes.
Section
Now, please see one, Milords, kindly see the effect. If I can just pause here for a moment, Milords, away from the definition. The definition your lordship saw of light motor vehicle means it includes a transport vehicle or a motor car or a tractor or a road roller. It includes all those. Transport vehicle by itself is defined, which your lordships will find at 247 Milords. Now, please see the definition of 247. So, transport vehicle means a public service vehicle, a goods carriage vehicle, a goods carriage, an educational institution bus, or a private service vehicle. Now, each of these, my lords, have also been defined under the Act. Each of these. So, just to take your lordships to a private service vehicle or a public service vehicle at 33 and 35, 233 and 235, my lords, is the definition. And kindly see how broad it is, the definition. So if a person is authorized to drive an LMB, doesn't require any other permit, then he can drive, according to the judgment, any of these vehicles, my lords, including a road roller of less than 7,500 category in unladen weight. So please see 33, which is private service vehicle, means a motor vehicle constructed or adapted to carry more than 6 persons, excluding the driver, and ordinarily used by or on behalf of the owner of such vehicle for the purpose of carrying persons for or in connection with his trade or business otherwise than for hire or reward, but does not include a motor vehicle used for public purpose. And a public service vehicle, your lordships will have a 235, means any motor vehicle used or adapted to be used for the carriage of passenger for hire or reward, and includes a maxi cab or motor cab, contract carriage, and stage carriage. So if the effect is to be taken to its logical end, a person merely holding a LMV license is allowed to ferry passengers, and it has a certain serious consequences as far as driving is concerned, because he doesn't have to have a medical certificate, he doesn't have to hold a license for 1 year of an LMV, but he will just come on the road, drive one of these vehicles, though it is less than 7,000, and ferry passengers either privately or in a public manner also.
And probably the conditions for obtaining a license for a light motor vehicle must be different from a condition which you have to fulfill for a transport vehicle.
They're much lighter, if I can use that expression.
That the rules will tell us what the differences are.
So those are not
Training, other things.
For hazardous, even more stringent, because it's not just ferrying passengers, it's
Carrying,
also carrying hazardous material.
chemicals,
Even the
etc.
tenure,
Oxygen.
even the
That's
tenure of the
right.
license is also limited.
That's right.
And you can-
Renewal is also limited.
You can get
Right.
it only at 20. For transport vehicle, your lordship saw in the licensing regime, transport vehicle is for 20, provided you hold an LMB for 1 year before. So those conditions will all go if it has to be given the effect pursuant to your lordship's judgment.
And the insurance companies are claiming that the impact of Mukund Devangan is that you cannot plead an exclusion to your liability on the ground that the driver was not licensed. You have to pay.
We have to pay.
To which they said they would argue pay and recover, assuming that you are not liable, you pay and you recover.
From the driver. As far as then it comes on the negligence aspect of it. But for our policy to be excluded, he has to have a valid driver's
Driving
license.
license.
So the whole.
If he doesn't have a driving license, a valid driving license, then you are excluded.
Then we are excluded from it. Now, what is that driving license, my lords? Now, whether it requires separately for a transport or even an endorsement, yes, permitted to carry. Even all other licenses also have generally LMB plus motorcycle with gear, motorcycle without gear. If your lordship, I took out my driving license and so on. LMB plus.
It all depended on how the court construed sections 10.
10.
Yes.
10 is the heart, actually.
10, I think it completely mistook subsection 2, which says that a learner's license, as the case may be,
Yes, my lord.
driving license shall also be expressed as entitling the holder. What is that expressing? That expression perhaps is related to first part or even the title, the form and contents of the license.
Yes, my lord.
It is not intended to equate it.
Such information
It's not
may be
intended,
prescribed.
it was not intending to equate a light vehicle
And it also says.
Make and content with all other transport vehicles. It was not intending to equate it because it was intending to convey that the form as well as the contents of a license must be in a form, in a manner which has been there with respect to other vehicles.
Other vehicles.
That was misconstrued to say that the light motor vehicle is actually equated to transport vehicle. So therefore, there is no distinction, ignoring the entirety of the scheme of the Motor Vehicles Act, which draws out a very clear distinction between a transport vehicle on the one hand and a vehicle which is meant for a personal use.
Personal, that is.
That's a mistake.
As far as the licensing regime is concerned,
Yes, yes.
in regard to that, for the
So
licensing.
all other provisions virtually have become redundant.
Done. And I should be fairly state, my lord, the reason why your lordships held is because of this 94 amendment. Once
Ten
those,
is something else.
Yeah, it's completely.
10 is only.
yes. So your lordships read this, that since 4 categories have now been removed and all subsumed in transport vehicle, yet light motor vehicle remains. So if you are a light vehicle, a motor vehicle holder of a license of a light motor vehicle, and transport vehicle is mentioned there, therefore we will, and there are some forms which your lordships construe. I will come to those forms. The definition section, unless my learned friends want some other section.
Also, 10(2) may be an enabling provision, you see. It says shall also be expressed as entitling the holder to drive a motor vehicle. It doesn't say of all the following classes. It says of any one or more following classes.
Lordship pleases me.
So every license may not include all of these, right? A to J.
But to interpret what is light motor vehicle, your lordship, the decision went back
Brings
to
out the meaning. Holds the license.
Categories are provided. That's what you're saying.
the only reason is the definition of light motor vehicle was,
Restrictions on the ground.
it went back to the definition transport vehicle and therefore the authorization to drive. That is, I'm simplifying it, my lords. Of course, I'll place the judgment. Your lordships have to consider that judgment.
Construed this before Mukund Devanga.
The High Court followed, in our case, my lord, High Court followed Mukund Devan.
And generally, what was the view of the different high courts actually?
No, my lords, once the 3-judge bench decision came,
No,
then-
before the 3-judge.
but your lordship, there were 8 judgments, my lords, which had different points of distinction.
Was there uniformity in the high courts before Mukund Devangan, or there was differences?
But there wasn't.
Uniformity. There were several judgments which said that if you have an LNB license and you are driving a transport vehicle of less than 7,500 kilos, you are permitted. Several said that no, you are not permitted, you must have a specific transport vehicle license.
Right.
So even here, there was no unanimity.
That man was the
That's why
ONGC
I
judgment.
referred.
The Oriental Insurance judgment categorically said in 2009 that light motor vehicle and transport vehicle are distinct categories. Referred to it as is obvious from the statute reading, but the judgments were there on this even in 2009.
But in my index, my lords, your lordships will find part D, which is page 9 to 10. It's difficult for your lordships to open, my lords, I know, because it's not bookmarked. Sorry, my lords.
Yeah, that's right. Your index.
Yes, my index wouldn't be bookmarked, my lords.
Page
I will
7.
bookmark it, my lords. Tomorrow it will be more easier. I have given the conflicting judicial pronouncement on a chart.
Order revenue must also get to 7,500.
So I have given, my lords, holder of LMB license LMB license must also obtain a separate license endorsement. 3 judgments there, my lords. And 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, my lords.
Now, Mr. Dave, we are making you're seeking to make a distinction between a licensing regime for light motor vehicles with a licensing regime for transport vehicles. Now, tell us, what is the licensing regime for tractors, road rollers, and motor cars?
So the motor cars are in the light motor because it's
Right.
defined in LMV. A motor car finds a mention in an LMV itself, my lords.
Now, is there a separate regime for tractors or road rollers?
Tractor is not mentioned separately, but road roller is mentioned, my lords, in the definition.
But the licensing provision, is there a separate licensing provision for road rollers?
Yes, ma'am. And 10.2 read with Form 4.
Only-
The Form 4 that you apply under also has a separate road roller category.
Not for a tractor,
No, I said road roller. Transport vehicle, light motor vehicle, and road roller.
not for a tractor.
Yes. E-rickshaw also, e-carts also.
Now, not for an omnibus also,
Not for an omnibus.
not for an omnibus. That's a lacuna in the law. my
The
lord.
moment you have a light motor vehicle license, you can drive an omnibus,
Omnibus,
tractor,
tractor, road roller is provided.
road roller is provided for.
An e-rickshaw.
And rickshaw, I think that is exception.
Ah.
Or of any other category like a trailer, etc. You
Yeah.
have the J category, which is of a specified description because they're not. But it could be, my lords, the seventh specified description would be like an earth excavator. You know, when the road is being constructed, etc.
But if you have to conceptualize section 10, Mr. Dave, how would you conceptualize
Because
it?
I
What is
would-
the purpose of section 10?
Because I would say that section 10, my lords, is a section which only provides for enabling a person to drive a particular class of vehicles. It does not necessarily mean that he is entitled, if LMB is mentioned, he can drive all those vehicles which are mentioned as far as the definition is concerned. One necessarily has to start from section 3 as far as the licensing regime is concerned. And the licensing regime, my lords, cleaves. It cleaves, my lords, into one, transport vehicles and of other category, which is primarily motor car.
We'd also like to see the rules now, so that's how
I got the
the act is implemented.
I've got the rules.
Yes.
I've got the rules, my lords. Rules are
So far as
page 436, my lords. Open it in this.
Made under 10, under 10.1, it says as prescribed.
Yes,
Rule 16.
Now, what do the rules provide? We'll have to go to the rules actually.
they start, my lords, at page,
You've given us the rules as well?
yes, ma'am.
Where are they? Page?
They start at page 436, my lords.
But you don't have the contents of it.
Just the yes. Contents and
Henna.
99, no?
Just.
before your lordships goes to the question that fell from the Honorable Chief Justice. Now, in any case, under the Act itself, under 10, transport vehicle is a separate category altogether. Does it mean that we have to go back for LMV to see that transport vehicle which falls under LMV will be automatically authorize a person to drive a transport vehicle? If transport vehicle is mentioned as a separate category altogether. The further dissection that comes, my lords, is that for LMV, if you hold a license for a transport vehicle, you will be authorized to drive it, though transport vehicle is a separate class which is mentioned in section 10 of the Act itself. So it is no longer it's not open to us to interpret that for LMB, you can drive a transport vehicle, but for all other categories, the transport vehicle will be above 7,500 kilogram, which distinction is not there in the section itself in section 10. That is my submission for your lordship's consideration. If there is a category of transport vehicle, it will apply to all transport vehicles.
Their contention is that, the legislature, by definition, equated transport vehicles with a unladen, with a weight of less than 7,500 in the same class as light motor vehicles.
Because the definition of transport vehicle doesn't have a weight issue.
Right.
The definition of transport vehicle only provides for the categories of vehicles which are included. It's like a more of
So every transport vehicle is not a light motor vehicle.
No.
But if the weight is less than 7,000, it's by definition a light motor vehicle.
It becomes a light motor vehicle. So if in 10 there is no qualification for the definition of transport vehicle of less than 5,000, then I could understand that it can go back to LMB and the definition of LMB. But after D, there is an E which says transport vehicle. So now transport vehicle is by a class itself. All those vehicles which are covered by that definition of a transport vehicle will automatically be covered, and you require a separate endorsement or a license to drive a transport vehicle. There is no occasion to go back to the definition.
You're right, because 10 makes a distinction. It elaborates both, itemizes transport vehicles and light motor vehicles separately.
Yes. So to go to,
But it becomes transport vehicle if it is put to use. As a
the definition of
to
transport
public
vehicle
service
is not
vehicle,
just-
goods vehicle and so on.
Right.
And they are
Distinctly.
In fact, because it is clarified by the legislature now that if it is a transport vehicle which is unqualified, so regardless of the category that it falls under, regardless of the category that it falls under, it would be covered. You would require a special endorsement to come.
utility.
Utility. It is a transport vehicle. Otherwise it would have provided, the legislature would have provided the transport vehicle under E, which is an amendment that is bringing to the act of 7,000, above 7,500, because it would have intended that below 7,500 transport vehicle is covered under LMV.
Now, apart from this, now what is the next line of?
And the judgment. That's why I said yesterday, it's not a very
It's a short point.
It's a short point.
Actually, you have covered almost all the ground. Then we will hear the perspective from Mr. Bhushan, Mr. Kaul. The statutory provisions we have now seen. We perhaps like to look at the rules, because
Yes.
that implements the statutory regime. By having are there separate regimes for obtaining an LMV license, light motor vehicle license, a transport license?
It is in addition, so it defines things like how a medical certificate is to be issued under Rule 5. Who is to apply for a medical certificate, learner's license and a driving license? How is it to be issued?
Does it have a separate
has
register for
forms.
transport vehicles?
Forms. That's what your lot.
Does it have a separate,
Forms are separate.
forms are different?
I wanted to point out that below.
Forms are separate, your lot. I will bookmark it.
Can you just,
I'll
See,
bookmark
the
it.
entire, the act
Yes.
speaks about the first chapter, different types of licenses.
Lordship.
Specifically provides so far as the rules are concerned.
Yes, Manoj.
Now, it speaks about the usage of forms
Yes.
commencing from 1 to as many. So this forms need to be taken
Yes.
for transport vehicles, non-transport vehicles and other things.
Yes.
So just make a small tabulated
I'll
form.
do that. I'll do that. I'll do that, and I'll also bookmark below. It will be inconvenient.
And now you
Yeah.
will understand.
just do a little analysis on a piece of paper and give us the.
In the rules, Milord, I was just checking Mr. Dave's compilation, I could not find. But in the table, in the motor vehicles rules, Milord, there is difference has been given of transport vehicles and non-transport in a tabular form. And Milord, it says everything, even the heavy motor vehicles. So Milord, all the transport vehicles are not LMVs, Milord. That's Milord, our case, Milord. This separate, Milord, table which has been given in the rules. I could not.
The way there's a more
Mr. Dave's
fundamental, more profound issue which we'll have to look at overnight.
There
Which
is a
is
clear table.
Is the boxing analogy of light, medium and heavy taken from the Motor Vehicles Act or what?
I think motor vehicle act took it from the boxing. But that's a sport which goes back ancient time. I don't, there's no welterweight or light flyweight, thankfully, but otherwise a complicated issue. I'll do
We'll come
the,
tomorrow. We'll come tomorrow. And, how long would it take?
I just have, apart from that distinction which has fallen from the lecture.
After that, now who will be arguing?
Mr. Bhushan,
Mr. Bhushan, then Mr. Kaul, and then solicitor will follow after that. What's the plan of action?
begging solicitor.
No problem. And solicitor is leading whom?
Miss Patakul.
Miss, the way you order. And then the all
The victims are.
fair enough.
Respondent who's IA, because the matter is already listed, they refuse to.
We'll hear
number
you.
it.
Absolutely. Please assist us tomorrow. Sir,
Minutes.
certainly, Ms. Shunai, please assist us.